Hi, my name is Emily Roberts, and I'm just your average 28-year-old woman from Chicago. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been obsessed with baking and cooking up delicious treats in the kitchen. It was like therapy for me, measuring, mixing, getting my hands dirty. Watching something go from a bunch of basic ingredients to a mouth-watering pastry or cake was pure magic. After high school, the obvious choice was attending culinary school to become a professional pastry chef. My parents didn't have much money, so I worked my butt off at a diner throughout those years, but it was worth it when I landed my dream job at Delilah's Bakery right after graduating. I started out at minimum wage, working insane hours, but I busted my ass and became one of Delilah's star bakers in just a couple years. It was during one of my bakery shifts that I met Tom Anderson, an account executive for a software company. He came in one morning looking tired as hell. "Mornin' darlin', the usual?" I chirped over the counter. Tom just grunted and slid a $20 across. "Surprise me with something good, sweetheart. Sales been kicking my ass this week." Since Tom looked like he needed a pick-me-up, I hooked him up with an extra-large banana bread loaf, my specialty. "On the house, hon, everyone needs a little treat now and then." The guy looked stunned. "Wow, thank you. You're an angel." He tore off a chunk and his eyes rolled back. "Oh my God, this is insane. You made this?" I blushed. Guilty as charged. Just a little banana bread to brighten your day. Well, consider my day bright, beautiful. I'm Tom Anderson. That's how we met, me slinging pastries and him being a regular customer who always left me the nicest compliments. We got to know each other more over the following weeks, flirted shamelessly, and he eventually worked up the nerve to ask me out on a real date. The rest was history. We dated for 2 years before Tom finally proposed. I was over the moon. This guy deeply appreciated my culinary talents and had fallen for the real me. Well, perfect except for one thing. Tom's mother Jane was a nightmare from the first time I met her. She looked me up and down like I was a cockroach when Tom brought me over for Sunday dinner. "Ma, this is my girlfriend Emily. Emily, this is my mom Jane," Tom said, putting his arm around me. Jane's thin lips pursed as she gave me an obvious once-over. "A pastry chef? That's interesting." She said it like she was trying not to gag. "Yes ma'am, I work at Delilah's Bakery downtown." "Tom says you've tried my banana bread before?" I tried to be friendly with an outstretched hand. Jane just stared at my hand like it was diseased, before turning up her nose. I didn't realize that was made by the pastry girl at the counter. I just assumed Delilah made everything herself. That was it, the claws came out from this evil old harpy on our very first meeting. I wanted to slap her and storm out, but Tom kept me calm, whispering that his mom was just little rough and to give her a chance. After getting married, I decided it was time to take my passion for baking to the next level. So I quit and got licensed to operate a home bakery business. "Oh, how adorable, you're playing kid chef again." Jane cackled. "I give it 6 months before the oven mitt comes off and reality sets in, sweet cheeks." Tom cut in, putting his hand on my arm. "Lay off her, Ma. Emily's worked her tail off to get here, she's got a real entrepreneurial spirit." "Oh, I'm terrified." Jane threw her hands up mockingly. "The great queen of cupcakes is finally branching out from behind that bakery counter cash register. What an inspirational, gutsy career move." My face burned, but I kept my cool. "Thank you for that stunning vote of confidence. I appreciate your support as I follow my dreams. But you know what? Spite can be an incredible motivator." So as the months rolled on, I baked and baked my little heart out, taking custom orders through word of mouth and social media. Jane constantly ragged on me about playing make-believe as a baker. But orders and 5-star reviews from clients started rolling in like crazy. I had a true knack for crafting gorgeous custom cakes, cookies, pastries, you name it. "Have you seen the latest for Emily's Eats?" Tom gushed one night over dinner, scrolling through my Instagram feed. "This girl is incredible. Her croissant cereal treats are blowing up." Jane shot me a withering look over her glass of wine. "Well, isn't that wonderful, dear? Getting those internet likes must be very validating." Although I'm not quite sure how viable a business based on baked goods photo shoots can really be. Things only got more tense as my home bakery grew. Jane seemingly took personal offense to my hustle and grind as Emily's eats blew up. Somebody ordered a 2-tier salted caramel cake for a wedding in Lincoln Park this weekend. I excitedly showed Tom the order one evening. This could be my big break to get into the Chicago event space. Jane snorted from the couch. Oh, how wonderful, sweetie. A locally catered cake for a couple of yuppies' nuptials. You'll really make it big with jobs like that. Better yuppie nuptials than nitpicking and nagging all day, like some miserable gossips I know. I fired back, losing my cool. Jane looked ready to swing before Tom stepped in. Alright, that's enough from both of you. Mom, stop crapping on Emily's dream before it even gets off the ground. And you. He shot me a look. Don't let her jabs get you riled up. This is your passion we're talking about. He was right. Every time I got flustered arguing with that wretched woman, I got sloppier in the kitchen. And I couldn't afford any mistakes, not when I was pouring every ounce of energy into making Emily's eats a success. One day, I got a huge order from one of my regular customers, Mrs. Wilkins. She wanted a big fancy cake and like 50 assorted pastries for some corporate shindig at her husband's office. This was a massive deal for my little home bakery business. Listen up, Emily, Mrs. Wilkins said in that no-nonsense tone of hers. This order needs to be absolutely perfect, you hear? We're talking the biggest wigs at my Richards company. If this goes well, you can bet your sweet behind I'll be referring you to all my high society friends. For the next few days, I worked myself to the bone prepping for Mrs. Wilkins' huge order. I wanted to craft a showstopper cake with elegant piped rosettes and handmade gum paste flowers. And the pastries had to be delicious little works of art. The morning I was supposed to deliver everything, I was a bundle of nerves. But I had baked and decorated each item with care, checking them over 1,000,000 times for any imperfections. By 10 a.m., I had it all packaged up and looking like a dream. That's when Jane barged in, ruining my flow. There you are, lazybones. I need you to run to the post office right this minute. She shoved a shipping label in my face. I ordered something special online and it requires a signature. I groaned in frustration. Are you serious? I'm literally about to head out with this massive order I've been working on for days. The only words I should be hearing from you are why yes, Mother Jane, I'll be happy to run your errand right away. Jane waggled her bony finger at me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to Jane's stupid demand just to get her out of my face. She gave me a sickly sweet smile as I grabbed my purse. Wonderful, that's a good girl. Now hurry along and I'll make sure your little baked nothings get delivered safely while you're out. Something about her tone raised red flags, but I was too frazzled to think much of it. I figured Jane was just being her usual awful self, condescending my business as always. When I got home, Jane said with a grin she had given the cakes and pastries to the courier. 2 days later, I got a call from the furious client, Mr. Wilkins himself. What in the goddamn hell were those inedible monstrosities you tried to pass off as pastries, Emily? He shouted so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Sir, I don't understand. This has to be some mistake. I was openly weeping at this point, all my hard work and biggest chance at success crumbling around me. I followed all the instructions to a T, perfectly tempering the chocolate, using fresh ingredients. Please let me make this right. You're damn right you'll be making this right by refunding me every cent and removing any association with my company from your cheap little website and socials. With that, he hung up, leaving me a sobbing, hysterical mess on the kitchen floor. Over the next few months, my budding home bakery business completely withered and died thanks to the horrific reviews from the Wilkins disaster. Jane, meanwhile, watched the fallout with glee. Well, isn't this just a shame? She crooned one evening as I sat despondently scrolling through the scathing online comments about my former business. Although I can't say I'm terribly surprised. I warned you not to get your hopes up too high with this cute little baking fantasy. Baking had always been my biggest passion, and having it ruthlessly mocked by Jane made the failure that much more devastating. For a while, I just stopped getting in the kitchen altogether. "Come on, babe, you can't let that witch get you down like this," Tom pleaded one night as I laid on the couch, staring off blankly. "Baking is your calling, don't let my mom's nasty comments make you give up on your dream." His pep talk actually gave me an idea. Maybe I could start doing baking tutorials and tips videos online to remind people how skilled I was. I spent the next few months throwing myself into cultivating an audience on Instagram, YouTube, you name it. I filmed step-by-step guides to my favorite recipes, shared baking hacks I'd learned over the years, and did calming videos just doing things like piping frosting decorations. To my surprise, people actually started tuning in and engaging with my content in a big way. Eventually, my follower counts on the various platforms started growing exponentially. "Damn it, Emily," Tom beamed one night, looking at my YouTube stats. "You just hit 100,000 subscribers. That's insane." Just then, Jane came shuffling into the room, wrinkling her nose at Tom and I smiling over my laptop. "What's got you two grinning like idiots?" Jane snapped. "Don't tell me your baked goods cart finally made it onto the evening news." I rolled my eyes. "If you must know, my baking tutorial videos online are getting wildly popular. I just hit over 100,000 subscribers." Jane's face instantly soured into a frown. "Is that so? How delightful." The sarcasm dripped from her voice. "Wasting all your time baking again for strangers on the internet to gawk at, I see." "It's not just wasting time, Jane," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "I've built a real following of people who appreciate my skills and knowledge. This whole thing could lead to amazing opportunities down the road." "Oh, like what?" Jane scoffed. "Getting your own public access television show? Maybe a baking blog no one reads? Shall I start setting aside money for your future unemployment now or later?" I fought the urge to cry as Jane laughed coldly, clearly threatened by my small restart towards pursuing my passion again. No matter how much I accomplished, she always found words that hit me hard. One day, I bumped into an old friend, Jenna, who I went to culinary school with years ago. She looked just as bright and bubbly as always. "Well, I'll be darned if it isn't Emily Roberts," Jenna gushed, pulling me into a big hug. "Girl, it's been ages. How the heck are you?" "Jenna, hey. Wow, yeah, it really has been too long," I said, returning her warm embrace. "I'm doing okay, you know, keeping busy with my at-home baking business and all." Jenna's eyes went wide with recognition. "No way, you're Emily's Eats? The baking blog with all those gorgeous dessert tutorials that's blown up lately?" I gave an embarrassed shrug. "Huh, yeah, that's me. I do love baking up a storm for my little online audience." Speaking of which, Jenna adopted a more pensive look. "Emily, you've got to come be a guest on my cooking show. We've got a slot open for a baking demo in next week's episode." I tried to mask my giddiness, shuffling my feet coyly. "Well gosh, if you really think making a cameo could help grow my brand, then I'd be honored." We exchanged contacts so Jenna's crew could send over the show deets. As I headed home, my head was still spinning at this shocking stroke of good luck. Me, baking live on TV? Could this opportunity get any more perfect to rehab my reputation after the Wilkins fiasco? When I filled Tom in over dinner, he matched my level of excitement. "Damn it, that's insane. My girl, baking it up on live TV, talk about the ultimate comeback." I swatted him playfully. "Oh stop, I'm sure it won't be that big a deal. Just a little guest spot to get some extra exposure, nothing crazy." But of course, Jane had to come sweeping in with her signature negativity to burst my bubble. "What's all this nonsense I hear about you being on the television, baking like a circus monkey for housewives to gawk at?" I rolled my eyes. "Jane, must you always diminish everything positive in my life? This is a huge opportunity for great exposure for my home baking business." Jane simply tittered mockingly before turning businesslike. Yes, that's all well and good. Now about getting me and Tom audience tickets." My eyes boggled. "I'm sorry, what? You want tickets to come watch the taping?" "Well, of course. Jane said in a tone like she was explaining something to a small child. I've been dying for a chance to appear on television myself for ages, even if just as an extra in the crowd. After some browbeating, I eventually gave in to Jane's insufferable demands and called up Jenna to ask for a couple of audience passes, figuring it would be easier than dealing with the old hag's tantrum over being denied. Thanks so much for this. My whole crew is stoked to have you, Jenna gushed when I arrived at the studio the day of taping. She ushered me over to the kitchen set area, where high-definition cameras were set up around the blazing hot lights of the instructional cooking station. When we go live in 3 hours, you'll be baking up your famous salted caramel apple pie and a platter of those drool-worthy lemon cupcakes you always post. While I got glammed up for my big television debut, Jane and Tom got seated in the front row of the studio audience, per Jane's insistent demands. Part of me was relieved to have their familiar faces there to lean on. The other part knew Jane would find some way to undermine or sabotage me yet again out of her usual jealousy and resentment. After that, I headed into the kitchen area to do some practice runs for my baking demo. I wanted to get the motions and plating down perfectly before going live. The pies and cupcakes I prepped looked downright mouth-watering, hopefully a good sign. After one last check of each dish, the director announced a brief break before going live. I took the opportunity to use the restroom and gather my nerves before the big moment. But when I got back to the kitchen set, Jenna was waiting with a concerned look on her face. Hey, sorry to bug you before we go live, but you'll never believe this. Our stage manager noticed your mother-in-law snooping around your workspace a few minutes ago. A wave of dread and panic washed over me as I rushed to examine the workspace. Jenna was right, some of my prepped ingredients had clearly been moved around. I couldn't believe Jane would stoop this low, sabotaging my big television debut by deliberately replacing my ingredients. Hot, angry tears sprang to my eyes as Jenna pulled me into a comforting hug. Hey, it's okay, we'll just get you fresh ingredients, no sweat, she murmured softly, stroking my back. Everything's gonna be fine, I promise. Jenna quickly summoned a production assistant to race out and purchase all new baking supplies from a nearby store while I tried to collect myself. I could feel Jane's smug leer burning into the back of my head from her front row audience seat. When the new, untainted ingredients finally arrived, it was time to go live. I took a few deep, calming breaths and stepped up to the cooking area, my face set in grim determination. As I got to work whipping up the salted caramel apple pie and lemon cupcake batters, I made sure to narrate each step for the viewers at home. Jenna chimed in occasionally with encouraging words about my impeccable technique. Just look at Emily's precise piping work on those cupcake swirls, folks. TV perfect if I've ever seen it. After what felt like no time at all, it was the big moment. Jenna welcomed a panel of audience members up to sample my creations live on air. I felt my heart pounding as the first taste tester, a middle-aged woman, politely took a bite of the salted caramel apple pie. I searched her face for any hint of reaction, positive or negative. The woman's eyes suddenly went wide, seemingly in surprise. Oh my, this is just heavenly, she exclaimed once she finally swallowed the bite. That perfect crumbly yet flaky crust, the zing of the salted caramel, good lord, it's like a flavor explosion. A giddy smile broke out across my face as the other samplers voiced similar oohs and ahs of delight at each bite. Jenna shot me a big wink and double thumbs up, clearly estetic her secret weapon baking guest was knocking it out of the park. I snuck a peek at Jane out in the front row, absolutely seething with her arms crossed tightly. Good, let that wretched, bitter old crone sit and stew for once, watching my success happen right in front of her hateful eyes. As the polite clapping died down, Jenna took center stage with a devilish grin. Well folks, I think we can all agree Emily's baking is, indeed, out of this world incredible. But, what if I told you our miraculous pastry wizard overcame a last-minute act of sabotage just to dazzle us here today? The audience let out a collective murmur of confusion. A large screen behind Jenna and I flickered to life, displaying security cam footage from earlier that morning. We watched in silence as Jane's hunched figure snuck up to my prepped workstation, looked around furtively, then proceeded to open various containers and jars, seemingly tampering with their contents. The video cut out as a deafening hush fell over the studio audience. Everyone instinctively turned to gawk at Jane sitting frozen in her front row. Finally, the silence was broken by Tom, my sweet, supportive husband, suddenly standing up and bellowing at the top of his lungs. "Enough, Mother! How dare you try sabotaging Emily's big break out of your own pathetic jealousy? I'm so sorry, baby." Tom turned to me with tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry. I never saw her toxic, abusive behavior for what it was sooner. You never deserved any of her gaslighting, manipulative behavior." The cameras panned over to Jane, absolutely pallid and shrinking into her seat in horror, as Jenna offered her the microphone and asked if she'd care to explain her sabotaging actions. For a moment, Jane just sat there frozen, silently opening and closing her mouth. But when she finally did speak, it was with a scathing venom. "You smug, ungrateful little thing." She spat out the insult directly at me, causing the audience to gasp in shock. "You think your cute little baking hobby makes you so special, huh? That this is the big break that finally earns you some undeserved self-respect?" Jane let out a high, deranged cackle. "Well, I've got a wake-up call for you, Missy. It was me who ruined that all-important catered lunch that destroyed your pathetic business. Me. From the very start, all I'd dreamed of was destroying you, your disgusting baking career, your undeserved relationship with my son, everything." Seeing Jane unravel completely into her true, unfiltered toxic self was bone-chilling. She turned her furious glare directly into the camera lens, screaming with heightened mania. "I won't let this nothing, this lazy, slovenly chef wannabe, tarnish the honor of being married into the Anderson family name any longer with her sham baking act. You hear me, Emily? I'll destroy you if it's the last thing I dash." Suddenly, Jane's hate-filled tirade was cut short by a loud thud, as Tom had charged from his seat and full-on knocked the microphone out of her hands, leaving the audiences shrieking in shock. Thereafter, Tom pulled me into a loving embrace as the audience roared their approval. I buried my face in his chest, alternating between sobs of joy and disbelief at how everything had unfolded. That TV appearance was a total game-changer for my life and career. Turns out, people just can't get enough of baking drama mixed with unhinged family meltdowns. Jenna's baking show scored its highest ratings ever from all the insanity that went down. TV bloggers and reviewers raved about what an unscripted television milestone it was. Clips from the episode, particularly Jane's deranged rant where she admitted sabotaging me, went viral almost instantly. Overnight, I became known as the long-suffering baking blogger who finally stood up to her evil mother-in-law from hell. It was honestly overwhelming, my little online baking tips channel getting that much mainstream exposure. Dude, this is nuts. I've already gained like 200,000 new YouTube subscribers just from that TV fiasco. I showed Tom the numbers a few days later, still in disbelief. Brands started hitting me up about sponsorship opportunities. Television talent scouts DM'd about potentially hosting my own show someday. It was a wildly surreal experience being lifted up in the aftermath of what had been one of the most traumatizing, horrific days of my life. Is this really happening? I marveled aloud while reading a lucrative sponsorship offer out loud to Tom one night over glasses of celebratory wine. Am I actually a full-on celebrity baker now? Tom grinned and clinked my glass. You're damn right, baby. And you earned every ounce of it with your crazy talent and mental toughness to endure all this from you-know-who for so long. I felt myself blush at the high praise. Looking back, maybe all that torment had been a blessing in disguise. The thing that truly compelled me to hone my craft with laser focus, while simultaneously developing the thick skin needed to endure hurtful critics and naysayers. Jane had been the ultimate naysayer, and I had still managed to make my baking dream a success in spite of her. As for Jane herself, let's just say between the public humiliation of having her abusive behavior exposed so rawly, and Tom completely cutting her out of our lives, she ended up retreating back to whatever sad little hell dimension she crawled out of. Without so much as a text or call from her, we quietly packed up and moved out of the home to completely cut ties. We found a beautiful new place we could truly make our own, splurging on upgrades here and there thanks to my booming influencer income.